Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jessica Nanoska, and it has been so long that so much has changed that I needed to do a life update and kind of explain my full, honest journey through college. So let's begin. This video is not intended to discourage anyone from going to college or attending university. That is not my intention. I just wanted to share my honest journey because everyone experiences college differently. Some people may have similar experience to me. Some people may thrive. Some people might love every second of it. So it's a totally personal experience. And I'm really grateful for my experience at UCLA because with that, I was able to have some cool opportunities, some cool experiences, meet some awesome people, and going and majoring in what I majored in ultimately helped me realize that I don't want to apply to medical school after all. A little bit of background, my childhood dream was to go to medical school. I wanted to become a doctor since I was 8 years old. More specifically, I ended up deciding I wanted to do surgery. And because of that, I took on that path. I worked really hard in high school. I applied to university. I got into UCLA. I went to UCLA. I majored in physiology. And March 2021, I graduated with my Bachelor's of Science in Physiological Science. My college experience started with a breakdown. Kind of exaggerating, kind of not. So let me tell you the story of my first, I'd say 2 weeks of college. I took chemistry my first quarter at UCLA. It was either Friday of week 0 or Friday of week 1 that we had a quiz. And me being like fresh start, new school, clean slate, I'm starting off on the best foot I can. I studied for that quiz 24/7 until that quiz came up. And when I got to that quiz, I totally blanked. It was my first experience taking a quiz or exam in a university setting. We do have auditorium seating. Someone was literally probably an inch away from me. It was crowded. There was a time limit. It was just a very chaotic environment that I was not used to yet, and I blanked. I got my quiz score back probably a week or 2 later, and I got less than 50% on my first quiz at UCLA. And I was defeated. I was like, I studied so hard for this quiz. I cannot make it through university. It was a moment. I cried in the back of a building to my mom on the phone, but we can laugh about it now. But that was my first exam quiz story at UCLA. After that quiz, I refocused, continued taking my classes. I passed my first quarter. Things were looking good. I was enjoying college life. I was figuring college out. The first time that I started questioning if medical school was right for me was at the end of my first year. At the end of my first year, I took an intro to physiology class, and I will admit I was a little iffy if I liked the material. But, I was like, you know what? This is intro to physiology. Like, my major is physiology. When I get into the major classes, it'll probably get more interesting. I'll like it more. So I questioned it a little bit, but I was still curious enough to continue with the major I was doing. However, with this little iffiness I had, I started to think of options that were not medical school, but still in the medical fields. It was in the spring quarter of my first year, which was when this physiology class was going, that I joined a club at school called BFPC, Bruins Fighting Pediatric Cancer. I'm wearing the shirt right now. This club is the club that I stuck with the 4 years. So that was one really positive club and extracurricular that I found that helped me with adjusting to college. And within that club, I met two of my closest friends. So after my first year ended, here came second year. I don't have any complaints that I remember about my second year until the end. We'll get there. BFPC is not the only club I did at college. I actually did a lot of clubs here and there. I just didn't commit to them or stick to them as much as I did BFPC. During my second year too, I actually had the opportunity to shadow a surgeon for 2 days. And when I did, I really, really saw myself doing that job and pursuing that career. The end of my second year at UCLA was a huge, huge, huge turning point. Specifically, it was when I took biochemistry. Biochemistry, I don't know why, but that class really did it for me. I remember the exact moment. I was sitting at my kitchen table. I opened the computer to see the assignment and tears just started falling down my face. I could not stop crying. I could not stop telling my mom that I couldn't do it anymore, that I needed to drop out. I can't do it. That was the closest I ever got to dropping out of UCLA and maybe continuing it later. But that was a major, 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 major breakdown and a major, major, major realization that I needed to change my path in life just a little. I was not ready to study and commit to taking the MCAT that summer. And I needed a total disconnect from school that summer in order to refocus so I can start my third year. And I was actually pretty excited for the beginning of my third year because that's when I started taking my upper division major classes, which was anatomy, which I was really interested in anatomy and all of that. After summer, the beginning of my third year rolls around and I took anatomy. I can genuinely say I enjoyed anatomy. There was a part in the anatomy class though that we started to get a little microscopic when talking about muscles. And I realized once we started learning microscopic stuff, that's when I wasn't feeling the material. With that realization that maybe I really don't like physiology as much as I thought I did, I started to fully accept that medical school was not something that would suit me. Letting go of my childhood dream to go to medical school was very, very, very hard. I felt like I was letting my childhood self down because all that little girl wanted to do was go to medical school and she was going to do everything she could to do it. Now to get into the reasons why I felt medical school was not for me. Number one, we kind of talked about I did not like physiology as much as I thought I was going to like it. I did go into my major with a genuine curiosity of how the human body worked. And I'm really glad I did my major because my curiosities were satisfied. So I'm comfortable closing that chapter. Two is frankly, I had no more drive to apply to medical school. I wasn't doing everything that I could have to be a competitive applicant. For example, the MCAT, I kept postponing it. I had no real interest in joining a research lab to boost my application. I didn't have the motivation to apply anymore. I was like, if I'm not doing everything that I can to be a competitive applicant to go to medical school, I have to be real with myself. And it seems like it's something I don't want to do anymore. I just realized that the lifestyle that comes with medical school and becoming a doctor is ultimately not what would fit the lifestyle that I'm hoping to have for myself. It is the middle of my third year and things started going downhill. I do want to say academically, nothing ever went downhill. I kept up with my classes. I passed them with good grades and all of that. So academically, things were not going downhill. Mentally, things were going downhill. The middle of my third year, I stopped staying at the dorms altogether. I still had my dorm because I had the housing contract filled out and everything, but I just stopped staying there. My schedule worked out that I was able to drive back and forth and be home. So I did that. Even just being around people studying would stress me out. It was pretty scary. It was pretty bad. At this point, I just felt numb and I was a robot just going through the motions of every day. Nothing would cheer me up. Nothing would even make me cry. I was just completely checked out and numb. I even tried going to a therapy session. After the therapy session, I snapped out of it a little bit and really tried to incorporate exercise and healthier habits and things that could get me out of this robotic state. But it was really hard to be consistent. And this robotic state that I was in made me realize that I cannot live my whole life like this. And I thought, if my mental health deteriorated this much in undergrad, I could not imagine what would have happened in medical school. If anything, feeling this way solidified my decision even more. March 2020 rolls around. March 2020 and on has been very difficult for a lot of people, but at the stage of life where I was at, it helped me because number one, I was able to get out of my housing contract because we all had to move out anyways, and I wasn't even staying at the dorm anymore. Being home and away from the college environment, for me personally, it let me pick up old hobbies, just be able to get myself back, get out of feeling stuck. I felt stuck. Finishing spring quarter of my third year online was what I needed at the time. However, in fall 2020, I really started to feel the effects of online learning. Everything just felt so disconnected. I had class 2 days a week as opposed to 5 when I did as a freshman, and I was exhausted. I actually got my first C, which was actually a pretty liberating experience because my whole life I've been putting so much pressure on myself to get A's and B's. It felt like being a student was the only thing that made me me. It felt like grades were the only thing that defined me, and if I didn't become a doctor, I wasn't living up to my full potential, which I've come to realize is obviously not the case. And I am more than a grade. Despite all these struggles and this giant roller coaster, I did it. I graduated in March 2021 with my Bachelor's of Science degree in physiological science. And that is something I did not think I could say at many points. I am very proud of what I accomplished academically, and I'm also really proud of myself for making decisions about my life and being brave enough to change my career path. I am comfortable closing this chapter of my life. This past year since I've graduated, I've just been enjoying my life and taking care of myself, trying to develop healthier habits, and learning about myself. Learning who I am outside of being a student, learning even the basic things about myself, like what I like to wear, how do I like to express myself, just learning about who I am and what I want to do with my life. I am very grateful for the opportunity that I have in taking my time to figure out who I am and what I really want to do. Everyone's college experience is unique. Just ride the roller coaster, embrace all the moments, both good and bad, and just make your college experience yours. And I want you to know that if you ever have any questions about anything UCLA, anything college application, feel free to DM me because I would love to help you. I do continue to plan posting especially on my other platforms, about just how I'm navigating my life post-grad now that my plans have changed. So if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening to my story. Stay confident in your journey, and I will see you whenever I post next or on other platforms.